Hi, welcome to my first video. Hope you all are doing well. And today's topic is, it was all my fault. At some point in your life, you've probably said this sentence to yourself, maybe at 2 a.m., maybe after ruining something important, maybe after a relationship ended, or maybe when everything slowly started falling apart, and in the end, the only person left standing in front of you was yourself. And you looked at that person and said, yeah, this was all my fault. But the real question is, was it actually your fault every single time? Or does your brain just desperately need someone to blame whenever life becomes painful, and that someone usually becomes you? See, the human brain hates uncertainty. When something bad happens, the brain immediately starts searching for an explanation. Because randomness feels terrifying. Psychologists call this the need for cognitive closure. Your mind would rather accept a painful explanation than sit with the chaos of not knowing why something happened. And sometimes self-blame feels safer than uncertainty, because if it was your fault, then at least the world still makes sense. If you failed because you were stupid, if they left because you weren't enough, if life collapsed because you made bad decisions, then reality still feels controllable, because secretly your brain tells you, if I caused this, maybe I can prevent it next time. But accepting that some things happen without fairness, without reason, without warning, that terrifies people. So the mind creates a story. It was me. And honestly, most people don't even realize how addicted they are to self-blame. There's a psychologist named Ronnie Janoff Bullman. She studied trauma victims and found something very strange. A lot of people preferred blaming themselves over accepting helplessness. Because helplessness makes you feel weak. But self-blame creates an illusion of control. If it was your mistake, then maybe the universe is still predictable. Maybe pain still follows rules. And this is why after heartbreaks, failures, rejection, humiliation, people start replaying memories like detectives. I shouldn't have said that. I should have worked harder. I should have seen the signs earlier. I ruined everything. Your brain starts editing the past as if guilt can somehow rewrite reality. But guilt is weird. Healthy guilt says, I made a mistake. Toxic guilt says, I am the mistake. And once that shift happens, you stop criticizing your actions and start attacking your identity. Now every failure becomes proof. Every rejection becomes confirmation. Every setback becomes evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you. There's also something called the fundamental attribution error. Humans have a tendency to over-attribute outcomes to personal character while ignoring circumstances. Meaning, when things go wrong in our own life, we often ignore timing, environment, emotional exhaustion, bad luck, other people's flaws, randomness, and reduce everything to, maybe I'm just not good enough. Because the brain loves simple narratives. And the simplest narrative is always, the problem is me. Especially if you grew up in environments where love felt conditional. Good grades? Appreciation. Obedience? Approval. Achievement? Validation. Slowly, the brain learns a dangerous equation. Worth equals performance. So when performance collapses, self-worth collapses with it. Then even resting feels like guilt. Even existing feels like pressure. And the scary part is, people can become emotionally attached to guilt. Because guilt feels productive. You feel like you're taking responsibility. You feel morally aware. You feel like a good person for punishing yourself. But in reality, endless self-punishment changes nothing. Your suffering is not repairing the past. Most of the time, you're just emotionally bleeding in front of memories that cannot bleed back for you. There's a concept in Buddhism called the second arrow. The first arrow is pain. Something bad happens. But the second arrow is what you do to yourself afterward. The endless replaying. The shame. The self-hatred. The internal punishment. And strangely, the second arrow is often more painful than the first. Now obviously, yes, sometimes you are responsible for certain things. Maybe you made mistakes. Maybe you hurt people. Maybe you were immature once. But taking accountability and destroying yourself are two different things. One leads to growth. The other leads to slow emotional decay. At some point, you have to stop turning your entire existence into a courtroom. You are not meant to spend your whole life standing trial against yourself, Because honestly, some versions of you were just surviving with the level of awareness they had at that time. That younger version of you didn't know everything you know today. And maybe instead of constantly asking, why was I so stupid, you should sometimes ask, why was I carrying so much alone? See, healing begins when you stop looking at yourself like an enemy. Not every bad outcome is proof that you are broken. Not every ending is proof that you failed. Not every mistake deserves lifelong punishment. Sometimes humans mess up. Sometimes timing collapses. Sometimes people drift away. Sometimes life simply does not go according to your internal script. And that's painful. But pain and guilt are not always the same thing. So let it go. Not responsibility. Not learning. Just the unnecessary hatred you carry toward yourself. Because at the end of the day, you cannot heal in an environment where your own mind constantly treats you like the enemy. See you in the next one. Bye.